point 56 on those things which invalidate salah. والتكبير بنية الانتقال لصلاة أخرى غير صلاته. A man is praying. While praying, he does an additional takbir, intending another prayer that would invalidate his previous prayer. So, for instance, a person is praying the 4 cycles of Sunnah of Zuhr. At that time, while praying, he intends to transfer into Zuhr Fard. And he does takbir, Allahu Akbar. By doing takbir, he has invalidated his previous prayer. So the author expresses this by saying, Al-Imam Shurum Bulali. What's his name? Mutiur Rahman. Abu al-Ikhlas Hassan bin Ammar Al-Shurum Bulali. As a Hanbali, this is your first Hanafi text you're studying. Yes. So next time you can read, inshallah, Akhsarul Mukhtasarat. So inshallah, when his Akhsarul Mukhtasarat arrives, we will also read Hanbali fiqh also, inshallah. So والتكبير بنية الانتقال لصلاة أخرى. Takbir, performing takbir with the intention of intiqal. What's intiqal? Transferring. لصلاة أخرى, to another prayer غير صلاته, other than the prayer that he is currently performing. إذا حصلت هذه المذكورات قبل الجلوس الأخير مقدار التشهد. All these things he has mentioned previously, all the things that invalidate salah, including takbir with the intention of transferring from one prayer to another. All of these things, if they occur prior to performing the entire tashahhud. So when you pray when you point 56, have you found it? Yeah. So if someone recites the tashahhud, at-tahiyatu lillahi wa salawatu, the last al-qa'datul akhira, the last sitting, and he finishes up to abduhu wa rasuluh. When he finishes and he does any one of the previous things, his salah is finished, meaning completed, because by default he has performed what? Al-khuruj bi sun'i. What's this? Pardon? Okay. So, al-khuruj bi sun'ihi, meaning an action he does which takes him out of the prayer, which is generally assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. But if any of these actions occur prior, then the prayer is invalidated. Why is this? Because the last sitting in the Hanafi school is a condition of the prayer, meaning, remember, there's things which are preconditions of the prayer, and there are those things which are conditions within the prayer. Preconditions and things which are conditional within the prayer. So al-qa'adatul akhira is the last obligation of the prayer. If someone has completed the last obligation, then they need to leave the prayer, exit the prayer, which is known as what? Al-khuruj bi sun'i, meaning exiting with his own manufacturing, with his own doing.
Not with the salam.
No, that's included. That's the correct method of al-khuruj bi sun'i. But if he does any one of the previous things, he has performed the al-khuruj bi sun'i, even though in the incorrect method, but the prayer is valid. Depending, if he does it on purpose, then it's a sin, because he's going against sunnah. Go on.
So basically, if there's any of that 55 stuff that come before this, his prayer is
prior to
or the tashahhud,
al-qa'datul akhira, the last sitting.
Yeah.
Sitting for how long? As long as it takes you to recite at-tahiyatu.
Okay, then if he does that, his prayer is accepted.
Yes. So even if someone's praying, they finish the prayer, they sit down in at-tahiyat, they finish the at-tahiyat up to Abdu wa Rasuluh, then they pass wind, bisun'i, his prayer is complete. Yes, but that wajib is like in a paradoxical state between in the prayer and out of the prayer. So technically, meaning the action of khuruj is not either in the prayer or out of the prayer, because the whole point of it is to leave the prayer. So therefore the disliked aspect is not within the prayer. They wouldn't have to repeat the prayer.
So do they have to sit for the length of the tashahhud or recite the tashahhud?
Pardon?
Do they sit for the length of the tashahhud? Do they recite the tashahhud?
So recitation is what?
Wajib.
Wajib. The sitting for the length of the tashahhud is rukn, is fard, is one of the obligations of the prayer.
So they just have to sit for the length of the prayer?
That's the obligation. So if they don't recite the tashahhud, they miss out a wajib. For the people listening online, they should realize this is for Hanafi fiqh only. So if there's any Shafi'is or Hanbalis or Malikis, refer back to those works in their school, respective schools. So then وَيُفْسِدُهَا, so when he states إِذَا حَصَلَتْ, if is attained, meaning or carried out, هَذِهِ الْمَذْكُورَاتُ, all of these previously mentioned things. What does al-madhkurat mean? Meaning previously mentioned things. Meaning which previously mentioned things? 55 points as to what invalidates the salah, the prayer. قبل الجلوس قبل الجلوس الأخير, prior to the last sitting. What's the last sitting? When you sit for the end of the prayer. مقدار التشهد, مقدار is amount, meaning مقدار is measurement of time, the time it takes to recite the tashahhud. مقدار is from qadr is proportion. So then the author states ويفسدها أيضا مد الهمزة في التكبير. What invalidates the prayer also is مد الهمزة في التكبير. Maddul Hamza is referring to stretching of what? The Hamza in the beginning. When you say Allahu Akbar, instead of saying Allahu Akbar, the person says Allah. Why? Because two Hamzas, one is Hamzatul Istifham, so it'll become what? Meaning Mad Badal is in Tajweed, yes, but you have Idgham of two Hamzas which makes a Mad, so the meaning would be is Allah the greatest, which invalidates the prayer. So even the takbir from intiqal to intiqal. What do I mean by intiqal to intiqal? From qiyam to ruku', from ruku' to when you get up, when you stand up again, then you go back down. Intiqal, transferring from one point to another. So instead of saying Allahu, the person should say Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So ويفسدها أيضا. Why is أيضا منصوب? أيضا, why is it منصوب? Accusative form, because it's what? But why? The reasoning? Anyone? Remember, you should know this from like the back of your hand. مفعول مطلق فعل آضاء مفعول مطلق مفعول مطلق. Like if I say ضربت زيدا ضربا, I struck Zayd severely.
Like adverb, basically.
Yeah, it adds to the, emphasizes the meaning. ضربت, they love to give the example with ضربة, so I'll give one with نصر. نصرت زيدا نصرا, I supported. Meaning abwab with daraba, the yadribu, striking. But the first thing you should teach a student is not to strike, is to help. So the bab should start with what? Nasara, 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 nasaru, as opposed to daraba, daraba, darabu. Okay, look. So وَقِرَاءَةُ مَا لَا يَحْفَظُهُ مِن مُصْحَفٍ. Recitation of that which he has not memorized from the volume of the Quran. What this refers to, she would perform the Qiyamul Layl, and sometimes the Imam would recite from a Mus'haf. They permitted this, but in the Hanafi school this invalidates the prayer. One of the reasons is Amal Kathir. So if you have the Mus'haf in your hand, remember the Masahif were big, that would entail that you movement in the prayer, so they say the prayer is invalidated. But qira'ah here, reciting from a book, invalidates the prayer because it's a form of talaqqi, taking something from the external of the prayer.
With regards to it being permitted in the Shafi'i school, what about the Hanbali school?
You would have to check the Hanbali school.
You wouldn't mention this kind of stuff in a Salah school. You would have to refer to a
No, they would have it in Mufsidat Salah or extensive works. So if you want to check the differences of the four schools, use the work of a Shaykh Nur Ul Idah, I'Alamul Anam, commentary on Bulugh al-Maram. Okay, so وَقِرَاءَةُ مَا لَا يَحْفَظُهُ مِن مُصْحَفٍ. Recitation of that which he has not memorized from the volume of the Quran. So if someone is reciting Taraweeh, the Qira'ah of Taraweeh, and they recite from the Mus'haf, the prayer would be invalidated in the Hanafi school. Likewise the Qiyamul Layl. You know, now they have the Qiyamul Layl being broadcasted, even though Qiyamul Layl you should be hiding from the world. But nowadays there's a bid'ah innovation of broadcasting the Qiyamul Layl. In the 1950s, when people would perform Qiyamul Layl, Sayyid Abbas Alawi rahimahullah stated that people would pray the Qiyamul Layl at home and no one would know who prays Qiyamul Layl. Yes, then they brought in the bid'ah of television cameras into the haram and televising people's ibadah. So then the buka, when you cry, they televise your buka as well, you're crying, and you have a camera, your face will be on the big screen and you're crying, and you have the Mus'haf and you're reciting. What do you think, Mutiur Rahman? So look, so وَقِرَاءَةُ مَا لَا يَحْفَظُهُ مِن مُصْحَفٍ, recitation of that which a person has not memorized from the Quran. Now if you look at writing and you understood and the writing, that doesn't invalidate the prayer. So if for instance you're praying, you see Ayatul Kursi written in front of you on a frame, that doesn't invalidate the prayer, even if you read with your mind. What invalidates is qira'ah with the tongue. Remember, there's so many people in the public who don't recite with the tongue in salah. They think they don't have to, they recite with their mind. They have to recite with the tongue. Go on.
So you know if he wants to read something from the Quran, a verse from the Quran, and there's Ayatul Kursi in front of him, can he do Surah Al-Fatiha, then look at the Ayatul Kursi and recite it?
If he recites from the Mus'haf, then his prayer is invalidated. If he recites from the memory, then it's fine. What they mention, an additional thing which we've already covered, is if a person hasn't memorized any Quran and he memorizes the Quran by looking during the prayer, that would invalidate the prayer. He would have to start again. So an ummi, a person who has according to his ability, and then he saw a frame or some calligraphy and he was able to read it, and he realizes, I've memorized that. When he realizes he's memorized it, his prayer would be invalidated. He would have to start the prayer again. Is that clear? So here وأداء ركن أو إمكان أو مع نجاسة مانعة. This mentions two things. One is كشف العورة. كشف العورة, the aura for a man is the kneecaps up to the belly button, not including the belly button, just below the belly button. This area is known as aura for the man. For the woman, the aura is the entire body with the exception of the face and the hands, yes, and the feet. There's two qawls in the school regarding the feet. The scholars, they tend to give fatwa on both, but the reality is the feet are not aura for the prayer as well. Yes, some scholars are of the opinion the feet are aura, but then that would make all the salah of all those women who pray without their feet covered as invalidated.
People that outside of salah, the feet is aura for women, tough out the feet, the outside. They've got the hijab on, but they
Like the hands, they are like the what? The hands. So the second thing is najasa mani'ah, impurity which prevents the prayer. So najasa mani'ah, generally people give the example of what? Meaning for the amount, but some of the fiqh books mention if you place a drop of and najasa mani'ah. Now the person is praying. While they are praying, an impurity, for instance, falls on him, or an impurity comes about somehow. How it would come about? If it came out of the body, then the wudu is invalidated. But let's say he's praying, and a man next to him starts bleeding from the ada'u ruknin, performance of one rukn. What is the shortest rukn? Shortest rukn. These ruku and sajda. Ruku and sajda.
Is one part.
Yes, so arkan of salah are what? Takbir. But takbir again is in a barzakh, ithmas zone, shared, yes, like salam. So the qiyam, the qira'ah, the ruku', the sujood, what else? Al-qa'adatul akhira. The shortest rukn is which one? Ruku' and sujood. So you measure it accordingly. Enough time to say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, meaning with tum'anina, full salah. Now some people, they come into the masjid, they don't have common sense of covering their aura. So even though the aura of a man is mentioned as being below the belly button and including the knees, it doesn't mean a person goes into the masjid with shorts on. You go on masjid and you pray with the shorts on. No, the adabu salah, mannerisms of salah, entail that the chest is, for a man, the chest is covered, the back is covered, the shoulders are covered. Uncovering the chest, the back and the shoulders is makruh, disliked in salah. But then adabu salah also requires that wearing the appropriate clothing for salah. So you do not wear any clothing that you would never wear to an interview. If you had an interview tomorrow and you went in certain attire, or you would be embarrassed to go in that attire, then never wear that attire to the prayer, even when praying at home. So if you wake up at Fajr and you don't pray Fajr in the masjid because of an udhr, legal excuse, what are the legal excuses? There's no masjid in your locality, even though you should live in an area where there's a masjid and a doctor, an alim and a doctor. Two things. And a masjid. Yes. So outside it's raining. It's raining enough that your clothes will get wet, or there's frost on the ground, or any of these a'adhar. So you pray at home. You have your sleeping clothes and they have no impurity. You get up, you perform wudu. Would you pray your salah in your sleeping clothes, or would you have an overcoat to cover? You should have an overcoat that you wear just for the prayer. You place the overcoat over your sleeping clothes, and then you pray. This is from Adabu Salah. So now while praying, if someone has, everyone waits for the month of Ramadan for the moon to show. Some people end up showing the moon in the masjid, with their aura uncovered. And what would that do? When the person's in the sajda, if he's showing the crescent at that time, he performs the prayer enough time for the sajda or the ruku' to be done. And what would happen to his prayer? His prayer would be invalidated. So on Jum'ah, I mentioned these type of things, where people, what should they do? If they wear shirt and trousers, make sure the shirt and trousers is such a trousers that covers the aura, or wear a coat over the shirt and trousers that covers the aura. Go on, what were you asking?
The rukn thing, yeah.
So the translation now would be وَأَدَاءُ رُكْنٍ prayer, qiyam, standing up, ruku', bowing, sajda, etc. Or imkanu, or the possibility of performing a rukn. In which state? مَعَ كَشْفِ الْعَوْرَةِ, with the aura uncovered. Aura will translate as private region.
You know the rukn over here says karko. Is that also?
Karruku'.
Karruku.
Yeah. They sometimes do that to add commentary. So, مع كشف العورة أو مع نجاسة مانعة, or an impurity, najasa mani'a, that type of impurity that prohibits the salah. Meaning, if the impurity is less, so he's praying and the person next to him, his nose starts bleeding, a few droplets of blood go on his clothes, but the droplets are less than the amount which is considered kathir, an abundant amount of impurity. Validated. So if he has, the person next to him has a profusion of blood, and the blood exceeds 50p, then his salah is broken. If it's less, then he continues his salah. Do you understand? Go on.
So about the rukn rule, yeah. If someone is praying and then he breaks whatever, do the rukn, if he does it for 3 Subhana Rabbil A'la, and then he just finishes namaz within those 3 Subhana Rabbil A'la, is his namaz accepted?
How? Give me an example.
Like you're on a tashahud, yeah, and then someone breaks the wuzu and starts bleeding on you, and then you within 3 Subhana Rabbil A'las, you finish your prayer. You finish your
Yes, he's right. So someone's praying in the Al-Qa'datul Akhira, the last sitting. Towards the end, an impurity falls on him, and he finishes in time before the performance of a minimum rukn. What's a minimum rukn? A ruku or a sajda. Yes. Yes, so the prayer would be valid. Okay, next point here. وَمُسَابَقَةُ الْمُقْتَدِي بِرُكْنٍ لَمْ يُشَارِكْهُ فِيهِ إِمَامُهُ. Al-Muqtadi is the one praying behind the Imam. Musabaqah is preceding, meaning going ahead. Bi-ruknin, with a pillar, lam yusharikhu fihi imam. An example, a person is praying behind the Imam. During the prayer, the person praying behind the Imam goes into ruku', and the Imam hasn't gone into ruku'. If the Imam joins him in the ruku', then his prayer is valid. He doesn't need to do sajda to sahw. Why? Because any faults of the person praying behind the Imam, his faults are covered by the Imam. So the makruhat, the disliked acts, the Imam covers them. But what happens here? He goes into ruku', This can happen where people become confused. He goes into ruku', and when he goes into ruku', the imam doesn't go into ruku'. Up from the ruku', as soon as he stands up, he's completed one rukn of the prayer without the imam, his prayer is invalidated. But if the imam joins him and catches up prior to him finishing the, is that clear? So the author states this by saying, where is it? Was musabaqatul muqtadi, the preceding, is it preceding or proceeding? Preceding, yes, with the E, preceding the musabaqatul muqtadi, the one following the prayer, meaning the worshipper, preceding bi ruknin, with a pillar of the prayer, lam yusharikhu fihi imamuhu, in which the imam did not share with him. Lam yusharikhu, from musharaka, what bab? Yeah, mufa'ala. So ومتابعة الإمام في سجود السهو للمسبوق. What's مسبوق?
Joined in late.
Okay, so المسبوق, go on.
But the person has an illness.
Which person?
The person who goes down.
Yes, so even if he has an illness, he shouldn't be performing the rukn without the imam.
What if he can't keep his legs up for a long time?
And he goes into ruku',
Yeah.
he should sit down on the ground. And if he can't sit down, he lies down. Meaning Islam is Deenul Yusr, religion of what? Ease. So you've not passed the age of maturity. So fasting in the month of Ramadan, if you find difficult, it's not pray. So they become habitual in doing so. But if they physically can't fast in the month of Ramadan, when the fasts are too long, they don't fast. They drink water and have drinks and pop and everything else you have in school. Do you understand? Religion is easy. It's not difficult.
Like, you know the previous point, musaba. So he's missed one rukun with the imam, but then later on in the salah, does that break the salah straight away, or later on he does get that same rukun the next?
That's
rakah?
different. That would be the imam having musharaka with him. Meaning your question is, the imam performs a rukn. This person misses the rukn. He performs the rukn out of its place.
Yeah.
That is not this issue, because
Now, even if he goes ahead of him, so he goes ahead of the imam and misses the imam, like you said, but then later on in the salah, the next rakah when they get up, he gets that rukun, the same rukun, the ruku with the imam. Is that okay?
no, because as soon as he precedes the imam in performing an entire rukn, his prayer is broken.
Then and there.
Yes.
Yes. That's
So a masbuq, a person comes late for the prayer. When he arrives late, this person performs sajdatul sahw. The latecomer performs a sajdatul sahw. The imam is not supposed to follow the masbuq in a sajdatul sahw. If he does so, his prayer would be invalidated. The other way round is fine. So if the imam is leading the prayer, the imam misses a wajib of the prayer, and the imam then performs a sajdatul sahw. The masbuq, the latecomer, performs the sajdatul sahw with him. That's fine. But the other way round, the imam is not supposed to be following the masbuq. This is why when the imam performs salam, he says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah on the right, and then you wait for him to perform the second salam and stand up. If you're a masbuq, you wait for him. Why? Because in case he does a sajdatul sahw and you've stood up, do you understand? Go on.
How do you do such a sahur if you're late?
So a person comes in and towards the end of the prayer, when the imam performs salam, he falls into sajdat sahw thinking he needs to perform a sajdat sahw.
Why?
people become confused in the prayer.
So if the Imam follows him, then is it accepted? But then if the Imam doesn't follow him, is accepted?
The Imam's prayer is invalidated if he follows him
And everyone else's prayer is invalidated as well.
with the Imam.
What about the person who did the sajda sahu?
His prayer is not because he's left the prayer. Go on.
You know, with regards to sometimes people might have the urge to, not such the sahu, but you know the lake with the masbuq, when he comes and then the Imam says salam, some people say salam with the Imam forgetting that they have to do such.
They stand up then. You mean they have to do a sajda to sahu? They have to stand up.
They have to stand up.
When they have to stand up and they perform the first salam with the Imam, the salah is still valid. They just stand up. Oh. Yes. So look. ومتابعة الإمام في سجود السهو للمسبوق. Okay, how this masala works. Look, listen to this, Rais. More clarity on this. The Imam does a sajda to sahwi, yes, but the masbuq stands up. The Imam ends up following the masbuq instead of doing his in the sajda to sahwi. That would also invalidate the prayer of the Imam.
What about the person who stands up?
Not his prayer, because their prayer is separated now.
So he's late and then Imam does sajda sahu and he stands up.
Yeah.
Is accepted.
Yeah. So the Imam ends up following the masbuq as well. This would also invalidate his prayer because the Imam is not supposed to follow the masbuq. So ومتابعة الإمام في السجود السهوي للمسبوق وعدم إعادة الجلوس الأخير بعد أداء سجدة صلبية تذكرها بعد الجلوس. A person sits down for the last sitting. When he sits down for the last sitting, he remembers he missed a sajda. Yes? So he needs to go back to that pillar of the prayer and he goes back to the sajda. He does the sajda and then sits down again. But when he sits down again, he doesn't complete the last sitting, meaning the full length of the last sitting. What's the length of the last sitting? The amount of time it takes to recite at-tahiyyat. So when he does this, what will happen is one of the arkan of the prayer, one of the main pillars within the prayer. So how this happens is a person is praying, he enters the last sitting, he does one sajda, he thinks he done two. Are you listening, Rais?
Yeah.
He thinks he done two and he sits down for at-tahiyyat. While reciting, he missed the second sajda, so he does the second sajda. But then he sits up again thinking he doesn't have to do the al-julus al-akhir, the last sitting, because he's already done it. And then he finishes the prayer. His prayer is invalid. Why? Because he missed out al-julus al-akhir. Al-julus al-akhir is the last sitting by its very definition. It needs to be at the end. He can't do something after it and then think the prayer is valid. Is that clear?
I don't understand it.
You were taking notes while I was talking. That's why I was saying, are you listening? If you take notes, you can't listen. Remember that. Shall I explain it again? Look. So then you write it down after. A person is praying. When he reaches the last cycle, he does one sajda. When he gets up from the sajda, he has a waswasa thinking he's done two sajda, last sitting. Yes? Have you got it up to there?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Okay, look. A person's praying, he's reached fourth rakat.
Yeah.
Fourth what?
Rakat.
Last cycle. He goes into the sajda. He does one sajda. He sits up thinking he's done what?
Two.
Two. he sits down and he starts reciting Abduhu wa Rasuluh. Then he remembers, I didn't do a second sajda, so he needs to do the second sajda because both sujood are fard. So he goes back to the second sajda. Now he's performed that pillar. But because he already sat down for the last sitting, he thinks he doesn't need to do the last sitting again. Do you understand that? And he finishes the prayer. His prayer is invalid. Why? Because he should have done the last sitting again. Because the last sitting is performed right at the end. Is that clear now?
Yeah, so you should have done at-tahiyat again.
Yes. So now you write it down after it's clear. Remember, when you're studying, you can't take notes and listen at the same time. Do you understand? Write it down eligibly, clearly, in cogent writing. I'll give you a small amount of time to do so. Go on. So, how do we translate this? وَعَدَمُ Adam is what? Absence. Of i'adat al-julusi, of repeating the last sitting. Al-julus al-akhir, the last sitting. You know one more thing about this point about mutaba'atul imami fi sujudi sahwi lil masbuq. Another scenario of this, the imam is praying. When he's praying, when he finishes at the end, he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And the masbuq says, Allahu Akbar, and goes into sajdatul sahw.
By his own volition.
Yes, and the imam follows him.
Oh.
That invalidates the imam's prayer. Rais, did you hear that one? Let me repeat that.
Yeah, I got it.
You got that one? Alright.
Again, because he followed the muqtadi.
Yes.
So write that down as well.
Why do you write things down? If later when you go home, you don't open the book again, the book stays on your shelf for 10 years, or if you're going to teach, then for a few years until you start teaching. Really, you should start teaching as soon as you do the book. Teach a few people so you gain experience in teaching. You open the book and you look at the sentence and you can't make sense of it. If you haven't developed a malaka, an ability of being able to read the books without referring back to your notes, then you will become needy of your notes. Otherwise, if you develop a malaka, an ability to read books and extract the rulings from elliptical books. What do I mean by elliptical books? Elliptical meaning, like works like Usul Shashi and all these works. They have a sentence and then they'll have part of the sentence hidden. So the author is attempting to say something.
So isti'ara.
Not isti'ara. Isti'ara is in balagha, in a form of rhetoric. I'm referring to a style of writing from antiquity, an old style of writing. They'd write a sentence and they won't say certain things. They expect you to understand. Elliptical style of writing. Many of these old texts have this style. So you need to develop a malaka, an ability to be able to read those books. Go on.
So if the guy, he does do the second sajda, but then he gets up and then he sits for the length of the shahud, is his prayer accepted?
Then his prayer is accepted. The prayer is what? Valid.
What if he didn't recite anything?
If he didn't recite anything, he's missed out a wajib.
So his prayer is incomplete?
Yeah. He's done a makruh. When you do a makruh in a prayer, you have to repeat the prayer, but the fard is done.
What's meant by sajda sulbiyya?
So sajda sulbiyya is the actual, the word sulb is from what? To be solid, meaning the core prostrations. What are the core prostrations? The two prostrations. The two prostrations within the salah, sulbiyya. So, وعدم إعادة الجلوس الأخير, not repeating the last sitting بعد أداء السجد, after performing one of the main prostrations, تذكرها, that he remembered. This verb تذكرها, he remembered. What bab is this? تفاعل. بعد الجلوس, after the last sitting. أداه نائما. This word adda is from adda yuaddi, to perform. How does this happen? Someone is performing Qiyamul Layl or Tahajjud like you guys do. You perform Qiyamul Layl and Tahajjud, and while you're performing the Salah, sleep overwhelms you. How can it overwhelm you? Sometimes it can overwhelm you in sajda. So you go into sajda and sleep overwhelms you and you fall asleep and you carry on with your prayer. Now you've performed a rukn without being awake in a wakeful state. So you need to repeat that rukn. But when you decide, then your salah is invalidated. Even in tahajjud. This can happen in Taraweeh when people are fatigued. So the author states, وَعَدَمُ إِعَادَةِ رُكْنٍ, not repeating a pillar, أَدَّاهُ, that he performed نَائِمًا while sleeping. Go on.
Just that Imam thing you said. The Imam is finishing a prayer, but then someone shouted the takbir, and this is just when the Imam follows him. The Imam's prayer and everyone following is broken. What about the one who shouts the takbir?
For the sajdatul sahw, meaning the masbuq.
Yeah.
The masbuq's prayer is not invalidated because it becomes what? Separate. So وَعَدْمُ إِعَادَةِ رُكْنٍ أَدَّاهُ نَائِمًا, not repeating one of the pillars that he performed in a sleeping state. وَقَحْقَحَةُ إِمَامِ الْمَسْبُوقِ, qahqaha is what? Laughing out loud. In the Hanafi school, qahqaha not only invalidates the salah, it also invalidates wudu. In which prayer though? Every prayer except janazah.
Don't mention this.
People tend to do some devilish things. So if someone goes to a funeral and he ends up on salam, he ends up laughing out aloud in a janazah, his salah is broken, not his wudu. So he re-enters the salah. But if he is performing any other prayer that has ruku and sajda, he laughs out aloud. What's the definition of aloud? The person next to him can hear him. His wudu is broken and his salah, both. Now the Hanafi is based that on a hadith, but the hadith, even though it's weak, they accept the weak hadith and they don't do qiyas on the weak hadith. They limit it to what the nas states, to what the text states. That's why in the janazah it doesn't invalidate the wudu, because they say the hadith was limited to the general salah.
The other one before this one, is it missing a rukn while you're sleeping?
Yes. So no, he doesn't miss the rukn. He performs the rukn while sleeping. He needs to repeat the rukn in a wakeful state.
With regards to because a person might receive waswasa and then they might smile, for instance.
Smiling doesn't invalidate the prayer.
Okay. Well, let's say
Qahqaha. Yes? Go on.
You know this, if he performs a rukun sleeping, so in sajda, how does he know he hasn't broken his wudu in sajda position? When his wudu,
You see,
salah break in that?
the wudu breaking in a sleeping state is based upon the resting of the body.
Alright.
Yes?
Not restless.
Mafasil. Mafasil is plural of mifsal, meaning the joints rest. But because he's in a state of sajda,
Yeah.
his body is not resting. So therefore, that sleep doesn't invalidate the wudu. Plus they have hadith for this. There's hadith. These rulings are based on hadith. But we're not interested in looking at that today. That's on Sunday, inshallah. Sunday. Which lesson? Tirmidhi and I'lamul Anam. So, وعدم إعادة ركن أداه نائما وقهقهة إمام المسبوق. Why he mentions the Imam of the Masbuq? Because then the Masbuq's prayer is invalidated by the laughing of the Imam in the prayer. وحدثه العمد بعد الجلوس الأخير. Hadath is what? Hadath is invalidating the wudu by releasing wind or doing anything that invalidates the wudu. This hadath, you see, najasa khafifa in the Hanafi school is which type of things? Things like bird droppings, horse urine, animal manure, and droppings of animals which are consumed like goats, horse. Horse, by the way, what's the ruling on eating horse in the Hanafi school? Tanzihi, makruh tanzihi, not tahrimi. Makruh what? Tanzihi. It doesn't mean go and slaughter a horse and eat the meat now. It's better to avoid. But the manure of a horse is what? Light khafifa. Why is it called light? Not light because when you pick it up it's light. It's because the ruling is light. Yes? So in Ghaliza, if the impurity is more than a dirham size, which is a 50 pence coin, or the amount of water you place on the palm, then the salah is invalidated. With khafifa, if it's 1/4 of the garment, but what they mean by 1/4 of the garment, for instance, you have the sleeve of the arm. If 1/4 of the sleeve is, or the torso, 1/4, like this. So, the question, what question did you have? How his wudu breaks? Hadath. Hadath can happen by bleeding, by pus, by passing wind, by the two main impurities from the front passage and back passage, and likewise laughing out aloud. What else? Vomiting a mouthful. Yes? If any of this occurs, al-hadathu, al-amadu, purposefully he does it. So how would he do it on purpose? Someone eats a type of food that produces gas and he needs to release the gas, so he waits and waits and waits till the end of the prayer, and then at the end of the prayer he releases the gas. That's al-hadathu al-amadu ba'd al-julus al-akhir, after the last sitting. So after he finishes up to abduhu wa rasuluh, when he finishes, then he releases the gas. Now the salah is invalidated. Why? Hamaduhu, because it's what? Hadathuhu al-amadu ba'd al-julus al-akhir. Pardon? Yeah. Amad. Amadin is what? On purpose. Wassalamu. But this is on purpose. If he does it without intent, then it's done, the salah is finished. If he does it on purpose, then it's invalidated. والسلام على رأس ركعتين في غير ثنائية ظانا أنه مسافر أو أنها الجمعة أو أنها التراويح وهي العشاء. Okay. Thunaiya is what? Thunaiya is 2 cycled prayers. So what would 4 cycled prayers be called? Rubaiya. Yes? So he's praying a 4 cycled prayer. When he's performing a 4 cycled prayer, in the second cycle he gives salam, thinking he is a traveler. How can someone make that mistake? That happens. Pretend, or imagine yourself, you travel from Leicester. Leicester is less than the travel distance, or a town like Smethwick, and when you come from that town to Birmingham, you think you are a traveller. You pray 2 cycles when you pray 2 cycles, your prayer is invalidated. First, the person just says, intends maybe Isha, just Isha. He doesn't specify the number of cycles. And he does the takbir. But then he gives salam after 2 cycles. His prayer would be invalidated. When he has knowledge of this, then he must repeat the prayer. ظَانًا أَنَّهُ مُسَافِرٌ, thinking that he is what? A traveler. أو أنها الجمعة, or he thinks it's Friday prayers. He thinks it's Friday prayers. Meaning, he was supposed to pray Dhuhr. He ends up thinking it's Jumu'ah. Go on.
If he thinks an accident, yeah, is his prayer accepted?
By accident?
Yeah.
No, he would have to repeat the prayer. أو أنها التراويح وهي العشاء. So someone enters the masjid. When they enter the masjid, people are praying Taraweeh. He thinks it's Isha time. He joins in the Taraweeh, and then they finish the Salam, and he realizes it's the prayer is invalidated. Or if he prays on his own thinking it's Taraweeh time, thinking it's the Fard of Isha, but then it becomes apparent to him it's Taraweeh. This is how that would be done. That scenario, the last one, can only happen in a Jama'ah congregation. There is one more thing. You know, if you're performing Dhuhr and the Sunnah of Dhuhr, what's plural of Sunnah? Sunan. You're performing the Sunan of Dhuhr, and while you're praying the Sunan of Dhuhr, the Iqamah happens. When the Iqamah happens, you have only performed 1 rak'ah of the Sunan of Dhuhr, or 2. What do? Finish the 2, give salam, and join the Fard of Dhuhr. Yes. If, however, you are on the 3rd cycle or 4th cycle, you finish off Sunan. But if you perform 2, do you repeat the Sunan, or do you leave it as it is? You leave it as it is. So, pardon? This is purely Hanafi fiqh. For other madhahib, Sunday I'lamul Anam. Have you got the copy?
Yeah, I've got it.
You read and do mutala'a of I'lamul Anam by Shaykh Nur Ul Idah, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, who's also ill, by the way, so make dua for him. أو كان قريب عهد بالإسلام فظن الفرض ركعتين. Or the person was أو كان قريب عهد بالإسلام, he newly accepted Islam.
Convert.
You use the word convert. Some people use the word revert. Some use the word convert. Just say a person who accepted Islam. He adopted Islam, yes? I don't know why they use those 2 different terms.
The revert has a bad meaning to it.
Does it?
It's regression, reverting.
No, I think
No, they don't mean that. They mean he's reverting back to his fitrah. But some people reject it because they say fitrah is different to Islam. Yes, so there's big disputes. People make disputes over nothing. So we just say new Muslim. أو كان قريب عهد بالإسلام. Or the person is قريب عهد. قريبة is mansub because it's what? خبر of كان. عهد meaning new covenant. بالإسلام, he adopted a new covenant, meaning with Islam. فظن الفرض ركعتين. So while praying, he thought that the salah is rak'atain, but it's in reality what? 4 rak'ah. Then the salah is invalidated. فيما لا يفسد الصلاة. Okay, who's gonna read? Pardon? Go on. Go on.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فصل فيما لا يفسد الصلاة. لو نظر مصلي إلى مكتوب وفهمه أو أكل ما بين إسنانه
أسنانه
أسنانه وكان دون
حمصة
الخمسة بلا عمل كثير أو مر مار في موضع سجوده
لا تفسد
لا تفسد وإن أثم المار ولا تفسد بنذره
إلى فرج المطلقة
أو إلى فرج المطلقة بشهوة في المختار وإن ثبتت به الرجعة.
Okay, this chapter is what? فيما لا يفسد الصلاة, with regard to that which doesn't invalidate the prayer. So those things we've covered invalidate the prayer. First one, لو نظر المصلي إلى مكتوب, if the worshipper looks at something written, مكتوب, وفهمه, and understood what was written, if he understood it, as long as he doesn't recite it from what he's observing or doesn't memorize it, and he formally hadn't memorized any Quran. If he formally didn't know Quran and he memorizes. أو أكل ما بين أسنانه وكان دون الحمصة بلا عمل كثير. You know, taking, while praying, if someone takes food from the external, so he's standing up and someone comes and gives him a morsel of food, that invalidates the prayer. Why? Because taking something externally into the mouth while praying is deemed as being amal kathir, and therefore invalidates the prayer. It can happen. Meaning, let's say, I'll give you a scenario. You're praying, a young child, your son or someone comes along and they have a morsel of food and they put it in you, and you don't know the issue, you don't know the mas'ala, and they put the morsel of food in you and you eat it. Then you attend Nur Ul Idah class and you learn the mas'ala, and then you, oh, my prayer was invalidated. Is that clear? Don't think the fuqaha just placed these things in the books for nothing.
I thought this is what doesn't invalidate the prayer.
Yeah, it does. I'm telling you in a scenario where it does. What doesn't is the following. You ate food at home, you go to the masjid, while or you go to the prayer, while praying you feel some the prayer is not invalidated, the prayer remains. So he states, أو أكل ما بين أسنانه, or he eats that which is between his teeth, وكان دون الحمصة, and it is less than a chickpea, بلا عمل كثير. This is on condition as long as it is without amal kathir. What is amal kathir? Excessive movement. How do we define excessive movement? Some fuqaha, they give different definitions. What were the definitions I mentioned? Yes, so if someone is the onlooker, when he observes you, it seems like you are not praying. That's excessive action. Additional to that, if you do 3 movements in per pillar of the prayer, 3 movements while standing, person scratches the head again, scratches the head, 3rd time's broken. This is how some have defined amal kathir. Go on.
Some people say that if you move more than twice in the prayer.
Yeah, 3 times.
But I thought you said every rukn.
Every rukn, not in the entire prayer.
That's what some people say in the entire prayer.
No, per rukn. So, otherwise it would be impossible for people. So in qiyam 3 times, in ruku' 3 times, sajda 3 times. Yes.
But what if
But there's one thing with the tarawih. If the recitation is long and spaced out, then the qiyam takes a different ruling. Do you understand? You time it according to the average fard per time. So, أو أكل ما بين أسنانه, he eats that which is between his teeth. Asnan, the word is plural of what? Sinnun. Teeth. They asked one of the old men, Ma sinnuka? He said, Azmun. What is your teeth? What did he say? Bones. They said, Kam umruka? How old are you? He said, La adri. I don't know. They said, why don't you know? He said, because my life hasn't completed. Min Umar is your whole age. So they said, how are you supposed to ask the age? He said, Kam mada min umrika? How much has transpired from your age? Kam mada. Mada yamdi. So if you say, Ma sinnuka? What is your sin? Meaning your teeth. They said, Kam sinnuka? How many are your teeth? Or your age? And he said, how many? 34, isn't it? Yeah. So the number of teeth he mentioned. So they said, you're older than 34, whatever number of teeth people have, including the which teeth at the back? The age for maturity. With this, he said in response, they said, okay, how are we supposed to answer? Kam mada min umrika? How many years have transpired from your life? Go on.
You know this broken thing here? Why if a person he has a bloody nose in it and he blows his nose blood 3 times in every rook, will he be excused because he has an excuse?
You see, he wipes it once. Then he would be excused, meaning it would count as a valid excuse in that case. أو أكل ما بين أسنانه وكان دون الحمصة بلا عمل كثير, as long as there is no excessive action. أو مر مار في موضع السجود لا تفسد وإن أثم المار. This is a common occurrence. Someone walks past a person worshipping, people think their salah is broken. They think what? But that's not the case. The one walking past is sinful. The salah remains valid. So he states, or marra marun, or a passerby walks, passes. Marun is a passerby, marra is to pass by.
The mosque is huge in it, that people have to walk through.
Okay. One issue with that, if you're praying in congregation and the imam is leading, you're permitted to walk past the worshippers.
Why it's a big mosque and people are praying the sunnahs and there's no space for you to move?
Then you can walk past them at a certain distance in a big masjid. What is that distance? The distance would be when you're praying from where you look at the place of sajda, as far as your eyesight goes, which is about 2 musallas really. That is the distance from which a person can pass by in a huge masjid. Is that clear?
So 2 of these things.
Yes, so that's the average size of a musalla, prayer mat. But the bench would have to be upright if you use the bench as a obstruction. So sutra. أو مر مار, or a passerby walks by في موضع السجود, at the point of his sujood. See, note here, the author Shurumbalali rahmallah, he mentions في موضع السجود, he specifically mentions the point of the sajda. لا تفسد, his prayer is not invalidated. وإن أثم المار, even though the one walking past is sinful. So in the masajid, aside from forming the rows correctly, meaning ensuring that the shoulders touch, the common problem is people walking past the worshippers without real need. ولا تفسد بنظره إلى فرج المطلقة بشهوة في المختار وإن ثبت به الرجعة. What is a raj'a? Raj'a, a man gives divorce to his wife, 1 talaq. Yes? If he revokes the talaq within The iddah. What is the iddah waiting period? Three haids. Within that period, if he revokes, how can he revoke? He either revokes, are you paying attention?
Yeah.
Listen to this carefully. He either revokes verbally and says, you are my wife now. Or meaning he does what a man does with his wife. Like that, she becomes his wife again. This is known as revocable talaq, raj'i. So a scenario, even if he looks at the woman with desire, she's his wife again. Yes? So a scenario, a man gives one divorce to his wife. The reason why I'm explaining is the sentence would seem odd to people if translated literally. A man gives divorce to his wife. One divorce, she stays with him, but she's attempting to encourage him to take her back as his wife. So while he's in prayer, she shows things to him by which he becomes desirous of her. The salah is not invalidated, but the raj'i is established. The talaq is revoked. Is that clear? So the author states, وَلَا تَفْسُدُ, his prayer is not invalidated بِنَظْرِهِ, by him looking إِلَى فَرْجِ الْمُطَلَّقَةِ, to the divorced woman, بِشَهْوَةٍ, with desire, فِي الْمُخْتَارِ, in the chosen position of the school, وَإِنْ ثَبَتَ بِهِ الرَّجْعَةُ, even though the revoked divorce is established by such an action. Is that clear now? Go and read the next part. Yukrahu. So, faslun fil makruhat. Inshallah, next week we'll carry on with all the makruhat in the prayer. Yes, so all those things which are makruh, meaning you see what opposite to fard is mufsid of salah. The salah is established with the fard. And then what invalidates the fard is a mufsid. Likewise, the essential components of salah is the wajibat. The wajibat are invalidated through makruhat, are the opposite. So if someone forgets a wajib, he does sajda to sahw. But there are some things which are just makruh, considered makruh in the prayer. Meaning the person has abandoned an aspect of the wajib. So inshallah we'll do that in the next lesson. Jazallahu anna Sayyidina Muhammadan sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ma huwa ahlu. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.